Hello everyone and welcome back to Cities by Steven. You're talking to Steven. Welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, please hit that subscribe button. Get that bell notification on too so you don't miss out on an episode. Welcome back to Waterway, Garno, where last time we were here, we built a powerful industry zone of the forestry industry. We also redeveloped all of the Quebec side of the river because if you haven't watched the series, we're building two distinct cities in one map based on the Ottawa-Gatineau region that borders Ontario and Quebec, Canada. And in today's episode, we are going to be kind of doing a bunch of management, I think. We're going to be building on the Ontario side, but we need to try and balance the budget a little bit ahead of the game getting a little bit too complicated and large. So we need to try and balance the budget because right now we are losing money. And we're going to do that by getting a college in. Getting a college in early, I've been told that it is very important to make sure that you have well-educated citizens, or at least educated citizens, in your city as soon as possible. We'll also be expanding a bit more on the Ontario side because this is where we're going to be building today. I try and flip-flop between both sides of the river each episode. And we have a really awesome open space over here with tiles that we bought last episode. We also even have access to the highway now, which is really cool on this side. So this is kind of where we're going to be building today. So I was looking around at some management kind of processes in the game and looking at our budget in particular. Right now we're losing 8,000 pretty much a go, and that's pretty tough. I know we're a pretty young city and we haven't really invested too much in our economy. We've been very much building in a style of trying to get like the city that we want out there, not really playing the management game. So that's what we're going to be doing in today's episode. But we have a ton of government subsidies, which is really good to see. But we don't really want to do the loan system. I don't really want to do it either. But I've been manipulating the taxes a little bit. And it's my understanding that we can go a lot higher. So I'm just going to bump the residential up to this. And I'll bump the commercial up a little bit as well. And why not the industry? We have a ton of industry demand, so I'll just bump that up a little bit. I won't really do the offices too much, that's not a ton of cash, but if we open up the residential area, we can see that we make the most money from our educated citizens. So if we are to get a college in here and we start getting well-educated citizens, we can expect that that money is going to be even higher for them. So in order to kind of get that, we could even bump this up a little bit higher, and look at that jump. That's pretty significant. Now we do need to watch our happiness meter when we're doing that, but that's okay. I've already gone ahead and tried to min-max the services tab, but it's a little tricky because there's some things that I just don't really fully know if it's going to be a detriment. But for the electricity and the water, for example, I've upped the service fee to the point where you can see on the bottom right of the panel, citizen happiness is at a +0. Which is our +/-0, which is exactly what I want. I don't really want to manipulate the happiness of the city. As you can see, we actually just went down in the bottom right corner. But we're ruining some efficiency, but we're balancing things out a little bit. Did the same thing for the water, but a lot of our budget is going into healthcare. Like that is a significant amount. So I've actually gone ahead and turned off one of our health systems. Here it is in Ontario. I probably placed 2 down a little too early. Same thing goes for a fire station. I put one over here. We don't actually probably need that this early on in the game. So we are going to start by building the college. And it's very important that we have a good network into our area for the college because people need to travel into the college. But I'm going to kind of take a step away from that because I think it'd be really, really cool if we were to get the college right here and we have this old cemetery on this hill, but also like we have the bridge kind of connecting Quebec and Ontario here. And I thought it'd be so cool to get the college right in here. So I think we're going to need parking as well. That's going to be a big thing that I'll talk about in a second. But I think we're going to get a bunch of parking lots here. We're going to level out the terrain, get the college in this area, and try to create like a really nice kind of maybe a spot where the buses can kind of turn around. We're not on the main street here either, so I think that's going to be the goal. We're going to end up leaving this road in place, so I think we can probably try and up the scale of it a little bit. Same with Strawberry Street a little bit, just to kind of help with the potential traffic flow into the area. All right, so we're going to place the college down. We're going to try and place it just so that it lines up perfectly with the bridge here. So we're going to try and line this up. Let's turn off snapping, and I think we're going to be pretty much lined up here. I think we can probably use the cemetery to be kind of perfectly lined up. So I think if we just adjust the camera perfectly so that I can actually get this properly in here. There we go. I think that's pretty much good. So we'll plop that in. And look at this, we have our first college. Now this is going to be really expensive, but it'll be worth it because we're going to educate our population, and then they'll in turn have higher taxes for us to use. I don't love this road connection here, so I'm going to fix this really quickly, and then we'll talk about the next step after I get in a bit of parking around here. All right, so we're gonna leave this as is now. We added 2 extra parking lots on this side. This should help out a little bit with some parking. And I also redeveloped this little area here just so that the slopes are a little smoother. I love this larger road here. I think that's awesome. We could even upgrade it since we spent development points on the upgrade tool here. We could place trees down the middle or on the sides. Let's go down the middle here, and same thing here. Why not? Always looks very nice. Then we have a little bit of space right here, though it doesn't look like we can really place much here. So maybe we could squeeze in a little teeny park. I'm not exactly sure. I doubt it. I think the playground's the smallest one, but it doesn't really make sense to have a playground there. So why don't we instead look at just doing a bit of landscaping in between the roads here. Alrighty, so we have that in place, and we're going to kind of let this be and see. Well, hopefully it makes the world of difference in the long run of getting this in here, because if we were to go to our economy again, we go to taxes, we can see that we do have to get some well-educated people in here. So it'll take a little while for that to happen, but that's why you need to get this in as soon as possible. At least that is my understanding. Then the next thing we can look at is our population, and this is pretty wild. We have 16.7% unemployment. And then if we look at our population itself, we can see, or sorry, the jobs. All right, so looking at this one here, we can see that we have a ton of, we have a ton of growth we need to do to make our industry zone profitable. So that probably tells me that we have too many industries and there's too much competition, and then there's not enough profit. But there is, a little bit of, we're doing really well in commercial, which is good to see, and offices. So it kind of tells me that we need to add in a bit more commercial and offices in the next little while, because we need to make sure that we have, as the population grows, we have enough industry so that it balances it out as we grow. That is my understanding, at least. Let me know down in the comments. But also looking at our workplace availability, we can see that we have a ton of well-educated jobs. So that would be office demand and some commercial and whatnot. So we shouldn't really do too many more offices, even though we have a bit of office demand. So this is kind of telling me that we need a lot of commercial, a lot more commercial to kind of place in, and that's kind of what I'll be doing in this little pocket here. We can see that we have a bit of demand for it in this area, and then also a little bit over here. So let's kind of zone that in. All right, fantastic. We also have a bit of space over here that we haven't really done too much with. That's because of Cypress Street here. I'm not sure if we're actually going to end up keeping it. So that's what's holding us back on this side. But we do have some commercial demand over here, which is interesting because I'm not actually going to connect this up to this road at all. So it's a bit interesting that there's commercial demand here, because I wouldn't really see this area being a commercialized zone, but I could definitely see us getting a few like community stores and stuff. But that kind of also brings us to a bit of expansion over here, but we don't need a more population because we have so much unemployment. So we really need to work on making sure that we have the job availability in today's episode, but also with getting the college in, that should be good. We can see that we have 31 employees here. We're just educated. Well, actually, they're all over the board here, which is nice to see. But we can see that we only have 9 students now. We have 1,000 in total. So hopefully that will grow as the episode goes on, but let's also turn up the gameplay speed. I hear that education is quite the moneymaker in the long run. So looking at our elementary school, this is the only one in the city. We have 760, which seems to be doing pretty good. Then the high school that we placed in last episode is doing okay as well. So while we spread everything out pretty far between the 3 locations here, I think we need to make sure that we have good bus connections in this area because that will be necessary for people to get to these schools. I don't think we really set up the bus networks to go to the schools directly, except last episode we did good with the high school one. All right, so now that we're kind of been simming on 3 speed, we can kind of see that we have some healthcare issues. So that might mean that I need to bump up the healthcare coverage again, because the only one we have on is over here. So we're pretty far away from our area here. Yeah, we can see we're in the red here. So maybe let's bump up that a little bit. All right, so I'm looking at our budget here, and we are spending so much money on the upkeep of the communications tower. 100,000, which is pretty much 100,000 for communications. So I'm gonna actually just take this building out. We placed this down a little while ago on a whim. Let's take it out because hopefully, even though that might lower the happiness of the city, it should help our budget a little bit in the end. So I could have just turned it off, but you still spend 10% of the money on that. Oh, look at this, we're still there, eh? That is interesting. Is this also for post? Because we have a ton of post offices, I believe, as well. So let's look at communications. Yeah, we have 2 post offices. I don't think we need 2 post offices. Let's leave this one in here in this part of the city, and we'll turn the one off over here. And I'm going to turn this one off. Instead, we also have a crematorium over here. My goodness, we spent a little too much money a little too fast. So we're just going to turn this off, and we should be spending only 10% of this now, because if we click this, we can kind of see that. Oh, if we maybe return it to service here. Yeah, there we go. A deactivated building does not produce anything or provide any services. The inactive building requires 10% of its normal upkeep. So we'll turn that one off. Hopefully that should help our budget a little bit, but maybe we jumped the gun a little bit too much, or a little too much on the in the early game here. All right. So hopefully that should clear out some services. We're going to really try in the next little while to get our money going good. I'm actually going to bump up the taxes a little bit more even. And then let's look at our production here, because we are spending a lot of money on importing food and stuff, but we don't have those resource slots available to us. This is probably for another day. We did a little bit, we did 2 episodes in a row pretty much on this, but we could definitely add in a bit of livestock. So I just noticed that we do not have enough electricity. Holy cow. So let's go to our services here, and let's see if we can bump up our production here, because I'd rather not spend money on building another power plant. So we go to that, we bumped it up to 116. Let's check our power consumption. After that, we should see a bit of a rebound. Yeah, there we go. All right. Should be good for now. But I said we're going to do transit, but I teased something about parking earlier. So maybe let's start with parking, and then we'll go to transit. Parking. So we have the ability in our districts, so here's Wellington, to put a roadside parking fee on. Now this should really make us a ton of cash. So if we go to our cash area over here, we can see something. Where is it going to be? I forget where it's going to be. Well, I guess we can just see it in the revenues here. So right now we're spending 37,000 just on roads. So if we can kind of try and minimize this fee, we could definitely cover the monthly expenses that we need to cover. So we're at 10,000 difference now. So let's turn on the policy to pay for parking. So we'll turn on roadside parking fees, and then we could just pump it up. Maybe let's go up to 20 bucks. That's a lot of bucks. And then we'll do the same thing over here in more. So we also have the welfare office in place and more. We're spending a lot of money on that, but this is going to help us help the lower income people make more money and make more taxes income. So that should balance it out since we've already kind of placed it down. We're going to talk about buses and get in a couple school buses. So let's start with a new line, and I think maybe we'll go from the college. We can kind of see the lines a little bit here. So we have one that kind of goes into the downtown and then over, and then we have one that kind of does a bit of a loop in more, and then we have one that does a bit of a loop here. So I'm thinking what we do is we have a direct line to the college that goes to the high school. It's pretty similar to the other line that we already have in place, but I don't really mind an extra bus, and I definitely want that connection into Quebec. Actually, maybe not. Maybe we do a bit of like a hub right in here, and we can get that bus to turn around and come right back from here into the college. That could be a good idea since we have a lot of the bus routes kind of converging there. But I think we also need another bus route that maybe goes in Ontario a little bit. We're pretty, still pretty small city here. But yeah, I think we need to add in some more bus routes. So let's go over to here. Let's turn this view off and let's get a bus shelter right here. All right, so we have a couple new buses. We have a bus that goes from the college into Crescent Street here, across, and then into this community over here, and then back. We also have another one that goes from here into Quebec and back. So I would imagine the first one is probably an Ontario transit network, and then the other one is maybe Quebec transit connection. But hopefully that should help bring people to the area, because we also made sure that we connected up to a couple nodes of importance. So this intersection right here has a bunch of bus lines running through it, so now people can transfer right there. We also put in a bus stop beside the Polaris Suites, and then we also got a bus stop in kind of this little hub here where we have a bunch of commercial buildings. We also have a nice pedestrian bridge over here too, so it's a bit easier to get around. Yeah, so hopefully that should all help out. We have a fire over here. Hopefully the fire department can get there in time. Oh my goodness, it was a car accident. Okay, here's the waiting for a hearse. Oh no, don't like that. Okay, so hopefully now that we've implemented those policies, we've seen a bit of growth here, but we do still, oh wow, we're making money on roads now. Look at that. See, just by implementing a bunch of parking rules, we have a ton of extra money, but we're still losing a bit. But I think we made a net difference here, and hopefully in the end with education bonus we should see that as well. We're making a bit of money on fees. I wonder if we can turn down this a little bit, maybe to 90, and hopefully we can see some of the fees go up while the maintenance costs go down. But let's see, any other possibilities of us making a bit of cash on this? I think maybe we can turn down the police budget a little bit too. We'll just go down to 90 as well. But communications, yeah, we're still at this because of the post office, but we cut it in half, so that's pretty good in the end. Okay, so I think we're at the building portion of today's video, but I did also say I wanted to get a bit more farms out this way, didn't I? Okay. Maybe we can do a couple farms and then we'll move on to the next portion of the video. So let's add in a bit more livestock farming. Two extra farms. This one's a little funny, isn't it? I kind of tucked in that little corner. But also this one we could even upgrade to extend out this way now. Let's see if we can grab this, bring it out to about there. There we go. We can bring this one over as well. I think we had the communications tower there, so now it is no longer there. We can place this in. Okay, so looking at this now, we have 29 students. This is going pretty good. We are losing a bunch of our demands as well as, students are moving in and whatnot, which is good. So it's interesting to see what is happening here. Taking a look at our unemployment, it's also gone down. Okay, so things are looking pretty good. I think all in all, I think it's time that we kind of look at expanding, but also at the same time continuing to add a bit of commercial. So one thing that I really want to do is build some sort of canal. The Ottawa area is famous for its canal, the Rideau Canal. It's a beautiful canal that was built for various reasons, but one really cool reason is that it was, we'll go into this a little bit more, but one really cool reason is for the protection of the area back in the day when they were using ships in the Great Lakes area. You could move ships around from Montreal to Toronto without going near the United States via the canal. So lots of other reasons as well, but the canal is very famous. It's a huge tourist attraction. It freezes in the winter and you can skate on it. World's longest skating rink, I think, and it's freaking beautiful. But I was thinking we could do something pretty similar to that with this lake. So in a later episode, we'll actually kind of build a bit more of the canal system, but I want to build a connection point from the lake into a Waterway river here. But this is going to take a little bit of work to do because it's going to take a lot of finagling with the landscape and whatnot to kind of get the flow proper. So I think we're going to try and make this connection today with some terrain work into about here, because this is what's been holding me back about expanding on this side, because I want to get the change of grid after this. We'll have a road kind of like in this area, and then we'll have like a bit of a triangle kind of look in this zone. Be a cool area for some parks and whatnot. But without getting into too much detail about the Rideau Canal, because we'll talk about it more when I connect it up somehow in the future, this little connection here is going to be really cool for our downtown. So let's try and see how the landscaping works, because it'd be really cool if we could kind of at least plan this out, and then maybe in a future episode we can actually talk a bit more about the history of the Rideau Canal and whatnot. But maybe it's looking like we could probably try and plan a connection point into here, looking at the topography. We're a bit steep over here. I wonder if we could even just kind of try and turn it a little bit. Okay, let's try and do a bit of landscaping, and we'll go down to about here. This is pretty good. It's pretty low right here. I could see us getting a connection point here, but we do get a little bit lower on this side, so I'll be worrying about going a little bit too much further. But I think it'd be cool if we could get a connection point right about here. So let's see if we can grab that height, bring it in like that. Yeah, very cool. Okay, so I'm not going to actually fill this in today like I mentioned, but this is just going to be kind of for planning purposes. Wow, this is going to get really steep, isn't it? Okay, so if we were to get the water from the lake over here, what height would we need to grab? Let's say we grab this darker line. So I just right clicked it, then we bring it back to over here. Let's see if I hold it down where that is. Oh yeah, wow. So we are much lower on this side than the lake. So I guess we could even make it pretty deep. Let's go to about this dark line and let's see where we're at over here now. Even that is still pretty good, but I can see us getting a nice gradual kind of slope in. So let's make a really cool connection point right about here. I do like the idea of getting this hill to kind of be incorporated into it, but let's see. Well, why not? Let's actually just connect it up. Why not? But we gotta try to make it a bit uniform here. That'd be really cool. But also figuring out how key walls work would be interesting. So we'll make it uniform as best as we kind of can. Okay, wow, we've actually already met the water. I thought that was going to take a lot longer. Let's just try and smooth a few things out over here. Hopefully this actually flows pretty nicely. It doesn't look like there's too much of a slope. That's my hope, at least, with it. But we're going to need to do some redevelopment with this area. I definitely want a road alongside the canal, but we might not end up getting it on both sides. In the real Ottawa-Gatineau area, well, Ottawa specifically, there is a road on both sides of the canal through the downtown corridor. So I'm looking at maybe implementing that. That would be really cool if we could kind of get a road at least on both sides. We could actually connect up maybe Spruce Street here, and it could become a canal kind of wall. So without kind of pre-planning that I was going to talk about the Rideau Canal, the Rideau Canal is such a beautiful feature of Ottawa. It's right in the downtown, splits the kind of the downtown core from some other parts of the city. Lower Town, which is kind of what we're modeling Wellington off of, but also Sandy Hill area where the University of Ottawa is. But the canal is really, really cool. I guess I can talk a bit more about the history a little bit, and then we can kind of talk about it a bit more when we add this second extension on, which is going to go somewhere in this direction in the future. But in the early 1800s, the British Empire and America fought a war called the War of 1812, and ever since then, after that, the British Empire were rather concerned about the idea of another war with America. So the small colonial areas of Upper Canada and Lower Canada at the time, they were rather undefended from a possible American attack. So the idea of Montreal or Toronto getting attacked, which Toronto did during the War of 1812, and then the Americans bottling up the Great Lakes area, restricting the flow of goods and military equipment to the two metropolises, or fledgling metropolises at least, was of great concern for the empire. So there was a few people that I mentioned when we first started the series, particularly Prime Minister Wellington and Colonel By, who the original Bytown, which is what we're modeling Wellington after, also known as the Byward Market area now in Ottawa. They came up with a plan to build a canal system from Lake Ontario around the Kingston area through a bunch of lakes and river systems, particularly the Rideau River system, hence the name, to this logging town along the Ottawa River. And then having that canal system connection would allow boats from Montreal to get to Lake Ontario without having to go close to a lot of the American defenses. And vice versa, if boats from Lake Ontario needed to get to Montreal, they would have the ability to not go through the American defenses. It's a pretty, it's a really nice area, first of all, but Canada and America never went to war again. It was never used for a military purpose after it was built, at least. But all the infrastructure is so interesting in the area, and it's such a central part of what became Canada's capital. Part of the reason why Ottawa was chosen as the future capital of Canada was because of the defensible options with the Rideau Canal, at least in part. The fact that it's on the Ontario and Quebec border also really, really helped. So the Ottawa River, our version is the Waterway River, connects into Montreal and is a navigable river. It's been a river of strong importance in the area for a very long time. So the idea of building a canal that could connect up to navigable bodies of water, Lake Ontario and the Ottawa River, was of really strong interest to the British Empire. So when they built the canal, they didn't know that it would become such a tourist attraction that it is today. I can't think of Ottawa without thinking of the canal, it is such a central part of the downtown area. A lot of the beautiful pictures that you see of Ottawa involve the canal and stuff, so I'm so happy that they built it because it's so darn beautiful. I think we did a really good job here at kind of leveling this out. While I kind of just talked off the top of my head about the history of Ottawa, I did not plan to talk about this. I didn't have any speaking points about this. That was just off the top of my head. But if I got anything wrong, feel free to correct me in the comments. But I'll talk a bit more about the actual planning of it in the future when we actually kind of build out the canal over here. I'm going to probably end up connecting it to this river because I just don't see us being able to build a separate river. We don't have a ton of space to do that because of all the hills and stuff. But I think we can at least get the themes in place by doing this. So let's now look at trying to get a road across here. I'm probably going to go through a bit of a speed through while I'm doing this because I'm just going to try and get a simple 2-lane road along here while trying to make it look like a bit of a key. Oh wow, as I'm trying to finagle some roads here, we hit Big Town. Oh my gosh. So Big Town, what did we unlock? Well, we unlocked high density. Oh my gosh, and oil drilling. Holy cow. And 8 more development points and 10 more tiles. Oh my gosh. So I'm really happy we're getting like that $1.9 million bonus because we haven't really fixed our budget. So let's get back to some road finagling. Because I really like the way the pedestrian path works here, but it's really tricky to get right. Like, this is what I want, but it's I need this the whole way across, but it's just not helping me out. All right, so that took a lot longer than expected. So I'm not sure how much you saw of that and how much I cut, but yeah, here it is. So we have a key wall with a pedestrian path so that the pedestrian path only has a railing on one side, just like what it is on the Rideau Canal in real Ottawa, Canada. So I'll do the other side probably off camera because that took me an incredibly long amount of time. But there are a few little awkward spots here to get things right. But all in all, I think it's looking pretty interesting, at least. So with that, I've also added the grid extension onto here, which is really cool. And then now we can fill this out with some things here because we have a lot to do still in today's episode. Now, while we have managed to lower the total cost, we still have just an incredible amount of unemployment. Where is the unemployment here? It is right here. We're still at 14%, which is a lot. So looking at our demands here, we still have a lot of industry and whatnot. And while we have some low density residential demand, we shouldn't really include that. What we should really look at is the fact that industry here, we have high skill labor availability, local ability of materials, and labor availability, but also, like I mentioned, the commercial situation. Now, we do have some high rent and stuff like that, and then also a lot of not enough customers. So I'm not going to really worry about the not enough customers. The high rent is a little bit concerning, which means the land value has gone up in that area. But let's get some more industries in here. All right, so now that we've gotten this, there's a lot of new icons popping up. The lack of high skill labor, which is interesting. If we look at this company here, we can see that they are asking for more high skill labor. This is an industry building, and there's another one over here too. So that means that we need to be making sure that people are going through our college system. But there's nothing else we can really do about that except for, increase the demands of people who want to go there. So we have some high density demand now, which is really cool. So if we click on this, we can see that there's the availability of jobs that people who want to live in high density residential zoning with this demand. So let's build that, and I think we can build a few smaller ones. And I'm curious if the low rent housing also is a part of that. But if we click the high density zoning, it looks like there's even some spots in the downtown core that we could even build some high density zoning on. But I'm kind of thinking that it might be cool to get some high density zones along this little area here by the beginning of our little connection point here. So I kind of want to build in here, but I want to build a path along this side so that we remove the zoning here so that we can get fuller blocks on the rest of the area. All right, so we're gonna let some of these buildings come in. We're pretty close to where that request is coming from, and we're pretty close to the college. So I'm hoping that that combination ends up working in our favor. But I'm not gonna do too much because I don't want to overdo it, right? So we'll see what kind of comes in. I'm really happy with the size of these buildings. I was a little bit worried that they're gonna be too large, but that ate up all of our demand. So it looks like we only really had demand for a couple of buildings here, which is interesting. Now we do have some office zone and some industry zone demand. So if we go to our population here, we can see that the unemployment has gone down significantly. So since we have a bit of that office demand, I'm curious about trying to get some in, and it's because we have the labor availability. So that is good to see. Let's plant a few offices down, and is there a good spot for it? I'm not sure if the zoning kind of shows where offices should be, just like it does with commercial, like that. It doesn't, so let's see if maybe we can get a few offices in and around. This is a tough one. I'm not too sure where we should put these offices. I mean, this is a pretty good spot right here for this, but this is some commercial area. But what about right here? We could squeeze in a small office. We'll see what kind of comes in, and then maybe we get a little office building. Maybe we fill in a bit more on the Quebec side. We have a ton of icons over here, which is not good, but that's okay. We'll figure it out. Maybe we can take up some space over here with an office building. We'll see what kind of pops up there. But I don't want to do too much in the Quebec side because I don't want to overstate our welcome, because it is supposed to be an Ontario episode. So I threw it in a few buildings there. Hopefully that meets our demands. And look at these buildings. Look at that. That is really cool. These are really tall buildings. Not the biggest fan of how we're using them right now, but maybe we can shift some things around later on, because I'd rather not have too many high density buildings in this area. I like the medium density as kind of like the highest we have. Okay, so looking at the demands again, yeah, 7.9%. That is really interesting. And we're cutting back on our monthly balance here. We're making some money on the roads. I might actually even back it up a little bit further just to help maximize that profit availability. And then garbage as well. Looks like we need to bump that up a little bit. All right, so we have all these new industry buildings in here, but they're calling for high rent, so I might actually switch them out for some commercial. If we look at this, we have commercial here and then industry here, so why don't I actually just switch out this for some commercial. We'll see what kind of differences that makes with that area, but hopefully that helps out a little bit. Yeah, so I think it might even be prudent to try and bring in a bus network out this way, but it also doesn't really make sense entirely because we don't have our connection over the canal yet. But we could actually maybe bring this bus out over here a little bit further. All right, wow, I'm glad I caught this. We need more power, so we can go back to our services and bump up the power demand here. We could also lower the service fees, and then that makes it more efficient because we can see at the bottom right that company efficiency is back at 0%. So hopefully this should balance things out in that regard. If we press play again, yeah. So I don't really want to do too much more industry out over here because I don't want to plan out this road network entirely yet along the other side of the canal. But we can roughly safely guess that we're going to use the same amount of land on both sides. But I just don't want to do this again. That took an incredibly long amount of time. Oh no, we have more power demand needs. So I guess the difference is, should we keep bumping this up? Or should we spend an extra bit of money on getting a new power plant in? But I guess we'll start off with this. And yeah, I think we're good. But I think I might want to just throw in more industry in Quebec because I don't really want to use it in Ontario anymore. So we have this slot over here. I think we could probably safely throw down some industry in this pocket. And then we have some bus networks in here that could use getting a bus up in this direction. So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to throw in a bus stop right here and then maybe one right here. Oh, we lost power again. So it looks like we really need to actually address that. But we have this bus network. This one goes through the suburban areas. We're just going to bring this one up to here, get it to stop there. Perfect. And then we'll bring it into here, get it to stop there, and then we'll get it to come all the way back in the same direction. And hopefully that should help out a little bit with getting people out this way as well. So we need to address the power situation apparently, and maybe we can just throw a bit of a stopgap situation here. Either we could upgrade this area, we could throw down a transformer. Oh, this building can't be upgraded, okay. Or we could, add in some wind turbines here. So let's maybe just throw down a wind turbine for now. All right, that's going to eat up into some of our profits, but that is a-okay. Alrighty, so looking at this now, we're playing on 3 speed, so we should see things move fast. So we're down to 6% here, which is really good. We can start thinking about maybe adding in a bit more population next episode, which is good to hear. So let's maybe think about... Oh, it's getting dark. I think it's about to rain in the game. So I think it's maybe a time that we start thinking about maybe planning out some of these road networks out over here. So we have our grid kind of maintained, and we just got an achievement, 4 seasons. But maybe we could connect this road up to here and then think about maybe starting to expand out a little bit further into this zone. Oh, we're getting into winter now. Oh my goodness. Because this area in here is a really good low density area. So let's maybe build out the road network a little bit further before we add in some more people. All right, so I've added in a bunch of roads through here, but we're still kind of waiting for people to move in. We have the demands, but I think the demands are over on the Quebec side of things because we are only just starting an expansion out this way into this direction. So once we get this going, there'll be a lot more reason for people to move to the Ontario side of things, but in the Quebec side of the build, there's a lot of space and a lot of things that we got going last episode to do. So this episode in Ontario, we did a lot of management. We added in a bunch of commercial. We put in a college, which is doing good. We're getting more people, so hopefully that provides us income in the long run. And we got a canal in, which is really, really cool. This was something that I didn't expect to fully do today, but I'm glad that we got in because it allows us to now finally expand over in this direction and get a new challenging grid over here. It's gonna be a fun connection point around this lake area here. And oh, looks like the building needs to be demoed. That's pretty funny. We had a bunch of high density demand for a little while, and then that really fell off, didn't it? I'm actually going to take out the demand. I'm going to take this out because I actually don't want buildings there anyways. So I'm glad that in the end things worked out. We have a lot of problems still in the city, particularly with the services, but look at this. We're finally in the green. I think the big change is that I just pushed taxes up a little bit further. Not too much though. And then I also, we're making money on our roads somehow, which is pretty funny, but that's because of the parking fees, which we implemented. What is this symbol here? Burn down, oh my goodness. All right, well, let's destroy it and allow for it to be rebuilt. But then I also turned off the post office and this elementary school in Quebec. So now we have like an elementary school here, a high school in Quebec, and the college in Ontario, and things are busy as can be. But I think this is all I have time for in today's episode, folks. So we did a lot of management today, a bit of building, including the canal, which is really, really cool. So I hope you liked the episode, folks. Let's get a cool screenshot of the build here, and then we'll sign off for the episode. So let's do this and then that and then play. And I hope you have a wonderful day, folks. Talk to you soon. Peace out.